Bruce Maluish from VRX Silica. We're a company that is looking to develop some very long-life silica sand projects in Western Australia. We've got 5 projects that we're developing with a combined resource of about 1.4 billion tonnes of silica sand, generally for export to Asian countries for glass manufacturing, but also for the foundry industry. And hopefully long term, we'd like to be making glass here in Western Australia.
Bruce, good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us. We haven't seen you since, I think, middle of 2022. Now, at that time, you told me, hopefully, by the end of the year, get your permits, environmental permits, and cracking on with things. How did you get on?
Thanks, Matthew. It's good to chat again. We're probably quite a ways behind from where we estimated in 22. These days, getting environmental approvals in particular in Western Australia, and I might add generally Australia, is proving not so much difficult as time consuming. Often where we used to get responses in weeks is now taking months. So our activities are try and keep busy in the periods that we're waiting for a response from the government, and when they do ask for more details, we put those together as quickly as we possibly can. So most of 2023 was taken up with environmental approvals. The last document we lodged was in October last year, and that was a response to submissions that had been received under the public review period. And that's a very important stage of the process because it's generally the EPA has enough detail in there to be published. It was published. There were a number of submissions. There were only 8 submissions. 2 were very positive, and there were a couple of NGOs, and the other ones were government departments. So we responded to those. We've been told by the EPA that they don't require any more information, and they will confirm with us anytime soon that they have enough information to complete the assessment. At the completion of the assessment, they'll have a recommendation for the minister. So we don't see any pitfalls in there or major hurdles to get over at this point. And we think it's a major step forward. We just expected to do it a lot earlier last year.
Why did you expect it? I mean, you must have known what the process was. Is the fault at your end? Is the fault at the end of the review process? I'm not quite sure what the review process was before, what it is now. Has it changed somewhat?
We made our timetable estimates based on the department's guidelines. So they're not even meeting their own guidelines, which is a bit frustrating. Where they tell you in a phone call to say, "Well, okay, we're not going to make it," even though it says this is when we're supposed to respond by. They haven't responded, but there's no jumping up and down and making a lot of noise. It just makes no difference. So all we can do is make sure that when we do respond, that we do it as best we possibly can, and try to estimate what issues that the EPA may come up with, even though they're unlikely occurrences. If they may possibly occur, we've dealt with it.
Okay, and then just want to be clear, because obviously the process as described by you to me about 18 months ago it's kind of sort of sensitive in the sense that you're sort of moving with your technology, moving kind of scrubland to access the silica and then kind of putting it back, remediating pretty quickly as you move along. There's no issues then with environmentalists being concerned about that technology. This is just a process.
Part of the problem is that nobody has done this particular rehabilitation method at this scale. It has been done on trial plots by other players in the area. So we had good data to go to, and we've gone to a lot of trouble to describe it, and there is no doubt it is a superior method that'll give the best possible outcome in rehabilitation. And we understood right at the very beginning that this whole project was about rehabilitation. It's a large area, it's an extremely large resource, but ultimately you got to hand it back in the same condition that you took it in the first place. So the whole mining method we have is built around the rehabilitation. We were well aware of that, but there are other features of this particular project that are not totally unique, but there is no waste dump, there is no tails dam, there is no pit. We're taking the top off a sand dune, so there's no void. So a lot of those issues that have to be dealt with by Mines Department and the EPA are not even there. So when they go to tick a box, there is no box. So they tended to spend more time looking at issues that were not particularly relevant. And quite frankly, it's been very tiny technicalities that we've been dealing with for the last 2 years.
Okay, well then talk to me about what you've been doing in the last year then. Obviously you hope to be done by the end of 2022. Here we are beginning of 2024. A year has passed since when you thought you'd be able to deliver this. What do you think? So let's talk about sort of the money first, if you don't mind. The cost environment in that time has changed. We have COVID, supply chain issues, and all sorts of price rises, salaries, all those wonderful things because of shortages of staff in certainly Western Australia. Have you done anything in terms of trying to understand whether the economics are still there for this project?
Yep, we do it almost constantly. The one thing we did do towards the end of last year, we went out and re-tendered for all the major equipment. And what we did notice since we last did our BFS is a significant increase in the price of steel. Getting steel delivered doesn't seem to be a problem, but the price of steel is probably nearly doubled in the last 3 years. And of course, the whole plant is steel. All the equipment in it is steel, and it's all held within a steel frame. And a bit of concrete on the bottom. There's no doubt there's going to be a significant increase in our capital cost. In the operating cost, no, very little change. Mainly, there's been a couple of good changes we've made. We've been able to source an extremely cheap power supply from a nearby gas well. There's no transport cost for the gas. The power station will be at the gas wellhead and aerials down to us. That's a significant change. And the equipment at the moment is all still diesel, only because there's not electric equipment available. Not for what we want to do. It will be, I think, in the next few years, but at the moment it's diesel. The price of diesel did go up last year, but actually, funny enough, the last 3 months it's come down. And in fact, the forecast for diesel at the moment is lower than the estimate I had 3 years ago. So the operating costs in total have probably moved up 5%. The sale price for silica sand has probably gone up maybe 10%. So the outcome is very much the same, other than the capital cost. It'll be significantly more. But we're amortising this plant over 30 years. So in terms of the financial modelling, the capital cost is not hugely sensitive to the capital cost.
Okay, so you protected your margins there. Silica sands, you're selling higher, but costs have come up. And
yep.
Let's see what these new shipping routes which are being created are going to do for oil price in the short term.
Shipping's come off as well in the last year.
Yes, it has. I'm talking more so about the kind of some of the rerouting of ships because of some of the
sure.
These
all of that's going to Asia, so we're going due north.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so that's on the kind of the margin protection side. Can you talk to me a little bit about the market as a whole? Sorry, before we go there, you've referenced it. The capex is modest. Is there a market for you out there looking to finance this thing, and how do you kind of structure that, the balance of that that without kind of diluting people too much? I mean, have you advanced conversations there, subject to you getting this environmental permitting through the line?
Certainly.
Over the line? Yeah,
Certainly, yes. We've been talking to a number of financiers. There's some government finance available at very attractive rates. We'll take up as much of that as we can. We are fairly confident of being able to finance more than 60% or possibly 80%. So there'll be an equity component in there, but it'll be the bare minimum as far as we can see. The margins are there to be able to pay back, relatively high interest rates. They're high at the moment, but the margins are there to be able to manage that sort of financing.
And I want to say is once you kind of get into cash flow, you can refinance that out at lower rates anyway.
Yeah.
With regards to the kind of constantly assessing the economics around this thing, is that going to come out in a formal document that people can look at?
Part of the reason why we went out and re-tendered for all the major equipment was to see how much it had moved in the last year. We'll put in similar sort of increases to the components that we haven't re-tendered on. But yes, that'll all contribute to a DFS, which we're in the process of compiling right now.
What's the timing?
So
on
we
that?
expect to have that out in the next couple of months, and that also supports our applications for financing.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's again. So I was just trying to think this through in terms of what the barriers to this could be. Obviously, you talked about 5 projects that you've got. Clearly, you've kind of got your flagship project. The ramp-up time, normally when I'm sort of dealing with kind of, gold and copper, I understand what this ramp-up could be. Given the environmental sensitivity around this, and you were kind of, it's really relatively new technology, people aren't, as you say, there isn't a tick box for it. Is the ramp-up period going to be slowed down by that? When can we expect, after let's say you get this thing financed, the build period will be what, and then the kind of how you have to demonstrate or to the regulators, to the environmental regulators, how if this thing is working, are you kind of sort of going to be on watch, as it were? Are people going to be looking to you to prove that this thing actually does work the way you think it is?
That's one of the joys of some unique techniques that we're using. One, the rehabilitation, it will be hard to measure inside 3 years. It'll be sort of 3 to 5 years when you can start really measuring the effectiveness of it. So, but our ramp up, we're looking to put in a 2 million tonne a year plant. That'll take 6 to 8 months to build, and we're looking at ways to try and shorten that up. And we'll operate at 1 million tonne a year, so half rate for 2 years. I don't think there'll be a problem ramping up the processing. The mining is relatively slow compared to many mining operations. We're doing 300 tonne an hour. And we'll run that 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for the first couple of years. The real ramp up will be into the market. It's a typical industrial mineral. You have to get the product into the market to increase the market. We have very substantial potential buyers who say to us, yes, we want to have a look at it, send 50,000 tonnes. Now, at the moment, we're in no position to do that. We struggle to send them 50 kilos. So you can't be in production, and you can't send those sort of samples until you're in production. So we expect the market to ramp up over a couple of years. We've got a list of, I haven't counted it for a while, but it's over 70 different companies have registered an interest to buy. Now, some of those are 20, 30, 40, 50,000 tonnes a year. Some of them 100, 200,000 tonnes a year. We've signed up 200,000 tonnes a year now, and we've got a number of companies that are waiting for us to get a little bit further down the track with the EPA approval for them to sign up. It's not terrible that it gets delayed because the price is slowly going up. So we've got lots of players there that will take the product, but it'll take a couple of years to get the whole thing into the market. We're from Arrowsmith North. We've got 4 different foundry products, and foundry products are a function of the size and shape of the grains, and we've got a glass product as well, and that's a function of the mineralogy. So what we have discovered through more and more test work that we've done, we can get an extremely consistent product. And ultimately, the buyers are looking for long-term supply and consistent supply. The 2 things we can do is we can sign 10-year contracts. This first environmental approval is for 30 years. We can sign 10 years because we've got 100 years of product. So we can sign very long-term contracts. And what we've found is with the particular resource is that it is extremely consistent. Therefore, when we process it, we get a very consistent product. It's exactly what buyers are looking for.
Right, and just sticking on the money side of things a bit, which is, you mentioned you want to be able to supply the glass into the Aussie market, or supply into the glass market in Australia.
Probably not the glass market in Australia. No, it'll be all the glass market will be in Asia. It'll be Asia. Producing glass here.
I thought you said Aussie market earlier. Okay, no. Into Asia. In terms of the financing, is there, because a lot of the North American companies are under pressure to not take financing and then supply into the Chinese market? Is this kind of competitive tension thing going on? Critical minerals, left, right, and centre. Obviously, the silica sands used for not just glass but also cement and a bunch of other uses if the better the quality. With the financing that you talked about, maybe 60 to 80% in terms of non-equity, where's that money going to come from? Is it going to be out of Oz? Is it going to be out of Asia? Are you under any pressure not to accept Asian money?
I expect a small portion to come out of either Singapore or Hong Kong.
Right.
Possibly Korea and or Japan. At the moment, we're not looking for finance out of China. And the end users we've been talking to have been Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Malaysia, Philippines.
Right. Okay.
But I have to admit, we get weekly requests from generally Chinese traders, but at the moment they're not. Our 2nd million tonne may go to China, but it'll be on spot. We're not looking to sign any contracts in China at the moment.
Okay, right, okay. Thanks for clearing that up. Now, the other thing you just said a second ago, we've got 100 years worth of sand. Now, that's a factor of how quickly you get after it or not. So, we've talked about the ramp-up period and the reasons why. But I guess last time we spoke 18 months ago, I kind of came away thinking relatively simple process. These guys got a lot of it, and I thought you kind of get into it quicker than you had. So did you. But the one thought I had was, how do they scale this thing? Because I think at the time with one of the projects you're talking about, maybe clearing $20 per ton. I think it was somewhere around that, and which might generate like $20 million per year. I was looking to see, well, how quickly can this thing grow? How quickly can you ramp this thing up? And is there a market if you did for this? So have you got a sort of sense of how you play this going forward in terms of
the scaling up in the first few years will be just the time it's operating. So if we're 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, we can go 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and then eventually 24/7. It's scalable from that point of view, but to go sort of from 2 million tonnes a year to 3 million tonnes a year actually is quite easy because you just add a train. It's one set of equipment and it's a very linear process. You just put another one in parallel. It can be scaled up significantly. Now, where we'll find ultimately the bottleneck, it would struggle to get over 4 million tonne a year out through the Geraldton port. There's a big port expansion going on at the moment. The state government's spending about $350 million on the Geraldton port. Part of that's for us. They're actually putting a storage shed for us. But there are a number of different potential opportunities there for operating at the port. But that would be ultimately the bottleneck.
Right. Okay. And do all your projects sit under that same constraint, in the sense that you're going to have to go through this sequentially, even if you get up to that 4 million number, or whatever the expansion number allows you to get up to, or can you develop them all separately or concurrently if you had the money?
They use different ports. Maluish uses a different port. Our project at Blurtup uses Esperance, and Maluish would use Kwinana. So yes, there's a bottleneck at each of them, but it's there's still a lot to play with. The way we scale this up is to bring more and more projects on.
Right.
Further down the development and ultimately to be in production.
So what's your end game here? Get into production, show this that it works and that it is ecologically sound. Does that make you attractive to some other party, or do you want to kind of run this thing yourselves?
Well, the company's set up that it's not a complicated company. But if it was attractive to another company, they would have to be sort of in the business. It's a very specialised industry. It's not like iron ore, where you can just come into iron ore and start selling it. Even though if you got lower grade, you get a lower percentage of the published price. It's with silica sand, every single deposit is different. And often a very subtle change will determine which market it goes into. And there are literally hundreds of markets. We're looking to develop at our Maluish project, which is just out of Perth. It's very high grade. We've been doing some test work in Germany to produce a high grade silica flour, which goes into the LCD glass market. And that the LCD market's growing at an unbelievable rate, but the sand is also suitable for making cover glass for solar panels, which is also a market that is just going crazy at the moment. So if you can either manipulate the sand a little bit to meet the market, or it's a bit like Arrowsmith North. We can produce some of the world's best quality foundry sand. Now, it's because what is there, we can't make it. We can go and screen it to the right size and get the right product, but you have to start off with something, whereas Maluish doesn't produce particularly good foundry sand, not as good as Arrowsmith North. So little changes in the sand will determine which market you get into. We're very fortunate. Our marketing manager's been selling or buying silica sand for coming up about 19 years. We've got him based in KL. He's a Korean guy. He knows all these markets. We could do some initial test work. We could show him the product and he'll go, okay, if you do this and this, it can go into this market, or what you got could go into this market. And quite frankly, as a company, we've been on a very steep learning curve, learning all these different markets. And sometimes it's just the tiniest little change will determine where it goes. So I can see ultimately at our Maluish project, we'll produce probably 3, maybe 4 different products. We're already producing 5 from Arrowsmith. Our Esperance project is very fine sand. It's a completely different sand and a different market down there as well. So our projects, as we develop them, they're not competing with each other.
Okay, no, I understand that. So basically, I'm going to take this as a no. You think you can run this yourself because of the you need to know what you're doing. So this is what I'm hearing at the moment is a kind of nice sort of steady flow of cash once this thing is up and running at full capacity. Let's talk about share price. You had a little spike in the middle of the year, so around July sort of time. What were and then it's come off a lot since then. So what were people expecting to happen around July time? Why that peak?
I think it was the response from the EPA that they confirmed that it was being published.
Right.
By the way, that confirmation came in June. They told us in a phone call in February that it was ready to go in February, and we didn't get it in writing until June. So there was 4 months lost last year.
Was it?
That was, everybody, I think, recognised that it was a significant step. And I think the share price has sort of hung in there a fair bit since before Christmas, because I think people have recognised that we've gone to the next step, which is the response to submissions, and that's been completed. So if we get notification from the EPA next, I expect a bit of a kick on that. And if we get the final approvals from the minister, I expect a significant kick on that as well. There's no doubt a lot of people recognise that getting environmental approvals for mining projects in Australia is very difficult, and it's a major hurdle to get over. If you do get over it, the good thing about Australia is you don't lose it. You have to do something pretty bad with your operation to lose environmental approval.
Yeah, I'd say the world over, we speak
mining approval, I should say.
Oh, yeah, I hear you. I'd say
yes,
the world
it's difficult
over,
to get, but once you get it, it's worthwhile.
Yeah. Look, okay, can you just to kind of finish off here, Bruce? Talk to me about what people have got to look. You said, okay, if you get those two announcements, you should see a bit of a kick. But how do you then take advantage of that? Is it just a case of, right, we're going to get the DFS out in the next couple of months, 2-3 months. Yep. We are then going to confirm or just button down the financing and get this thing going? Because it was a 6-month build, I think, from memory, you said to me.
6 to 8 months, yep.
6 to 8 months, right? So relatively quick. So what would you signpost to people in terms of looking in at this thing, saying, right, I think these guys will be ready to go? What does it look like? Path forward?
Well, the sequence will be environmental approval, financial arrangements, start construction, complete construction, commissioning, and shipping. So we expect to be shipping early next year.
Okay. Well, there we go, folks. Look, appreciate the update, and stay in touch. Let us know how you get on with all of the above. Could be an exciting year for you guys.
Thank you, Matthew. Lovely to chat again.